Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going exploring a chapter of the Bible that you might not expect. Numbers chapter 9.
Okay.
You see, most people they just jump right to Genesis or Exodus.
Right.
But Numbers it's hiding some serious gems about how faith adapts when things get a little unexpected.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Numbers can seem kind of like a detour on the way to those more dramatic stories.
Yeah.
But chapter 9 actually reveals a lot about how ancient religious practices, they had to grapple with issues of fairness and inclusivity
Oh yeah.
and how God responds when life throws curveballs.
It's all about this concept of divine responsiveness,
Right.
right? I mean, we're talking about a time when the Israelites are literally wandering in the wilderness, completely dependent on God for direction.
Exactly.
Like, which way do we go?
Exactly. And chapter 9 gives us two powerful examples of this. First, there's the story of the men who were unable to celebrate Passover at the appointed time.
Okay.
Remember, this is a year after the Exodus. The Israelites are camped at Sinai, and God reaffirms the importance of Passover.
Right.
But then, a problem arises.
It's not just a scheduling conflict. These men are ritually unclean because they'd come into contact with a dead body.
Yeah.
Talk about a dilemma. They're commanded to observe this central ritual. But according to the law, they're also excluded from doing so.
Right.
What happens next?
Well, they go straight to Moses and Aaron, desperate for a solution.
Okay.
You can practically hear their anguish in their question. Why should we be kept back from offering a sacrifice to the Lord at the appointed time?
You've got a feel for these guys.
Yeah.
They're caught between a rock and a hard place through no fault of their own.
And what's interesting is that Moses doesn't have an immediate answer.
Oh.
He acknowledges the complexity of the situation,
Right.
and he turns to God for guidance.
Okay.
He tells them, "Wait here, and I will listen to what the Lord commands concerning you."
I love that. It's such a human moment. Even Moses, the great lawgiver, recognizes that there are times when we need to step back and say, okay, God, I need your help on this one.
Absolutely. It highlights the importance of humility and recognizing that sometimes even our most deeply held traditions need to be re-examined in light of new
And
circumstances.
what does God say? Does he just
Yeah.
lay down the law and tell them to suck it up?
Not at all. Instead, God responds with an incredible act of compassion and flexibility.
Okay.
He says, those who are ritually unclean or on a journey too far to reach the designated location can celebrate Passover a month later.
A second chance Passover? That's amazing.
It really is. It shows us that God isn't bound by rigid rules and regulations. He cares about the spirit of the law, about meeting people where they are, and it sets a precedent for how we should approach religious practice with a sense of understanding and compassion.
This idea of a second Passover also makes me wonder, could it be a subtle hint from God that the journey itself, this wandering in the wilderness, is part of a larger process of purification and preparation? They literally have to wait a month to keep moving forward before they can fully participate.
That's a fascinating insight. And it connects beautifully to the second half of chapter 9, where we see God's responsiveness on full display, not just to individual needs, but to the entire journey of the Israelites.
You're talking about the cloud, right?
Yeah.
This mysterious cloud that appears over the tabernacle and starts guiding their movements.
Exactly. The cloud becomes this powerful symbol of God's presence and guidance.
Yeah.
It dictates when they travel, where they camp, how long they stay.
Oh, wow.
It's like a divine GPS system,
Right.
leading them step by step through the wilderness.
But here's the thing, this cloud is not predictable. Sometimes it stays for a few days, other times for months, or even a year.
Right.
How do the Israelites handle this level of uncertainty?
They have to surrender control. They learn to live in a state of constant readiness, trusting that no matter what the cloud does, God is leading them.
It's like a crash course in faith, isn't it?
It is.
No more 5-year plans or meticulously mapped out itineraries.
Yeah.
They have to learn to embrace the unknown, to be okay with not knowing what tomorrow brings. It must have been a constant exercise in letting go.
Yeah.
Imagine having to pack up your entire life, your family, your belongings, like at a moment's notice. Just because the cloud decided it was time to move.
Yeah, it really puts our modern day anxieties about change into perspective, doesn't it? I mean, we get stressed about a delayed flight.
Oh, yeah.
Or a change in plans, But the Israelites, they had to completely reorder their lives around this unpredictable cloud.
Yeah, and yet they trusted it. They followed it, even when they didn't know where it was leading them.
Yeah.
What do you think that teaches us about the nature of faith?
I think it challenges our assumptions about what faith actually is. We often think of faith as believing in something despite a lack of evidence. But the Israelites had very tangible evidence of God's guidance. They could see the cloud. Their faith wasn't about blind belief. It was about trusting in a power greater than themselves, even when it led them into unfamiliar territory.
It's like they're saying, okay, God, I see you. I see your hand in this. I don't know where we're going, but I trust that you do.
Exactly. And that kind of trust requires a tremendous amount of humility and surrender. It's about letting go of our own agendas and desires and allowing ourselves to be led, even when the path seems uncertain or even illogical.
Do you think there's a connection between this idea of surrendering to the cloud's guidance and the earlier story about the second Passover?
Absolutely. Both stories highlight the importance of flexibility and adaptability in our relationship with the divine. The men who missed Passover, they had to surrender to a different timeline, a different way of fulfilling the commandment. And the entire community had to adapt to the cloud's unpredictable movements, constantly adjusting their expectations and plans.
So it's not just about following rules or adhering to a rigid set of beliefs. It's about being responsive to the situation at hand, being willing to change course when necessary, and trusting that even in the midst of uncertainty, there's a divine plan unfolding.
Precisely. And the cloud, in many ways, becomes a metaphor for that divine plan. It's a visible reminder that we're not in control, that there's a force larger than ourselves at work, guiding us even when we can't see the whole picture.
It's interesting how this chapter seamlessly weaves together the practical and the profound. You've got these detailed instructions about Passover, but then you have this almost mystical image of the cloud leading the Israelites through the wilderness. It's like it's saying, hey, spirituality isn't just about lofty concepts. It's also about how you live your life, how you navigate challenges, and how you respond to the unexpected.
That's a great observation. And I think it speaks to the power of Numbers 9 as a source of wisdom for us today. We might not have a literal cloud guiding us, but we all have those moments in life where we feel like we're wandering in the wilderness, unsure of which direction to take.
So how do we apply these lessons from Numbers 9 to our own lives? What are our guiding clouds, so to speak?
Well, I think it starts with cultivating a sense of awareness. Instead of just rushing through our days on autopilot, we need to pay attention to those subtle nudges, those intuitive whispers, those moments of synchronicity that seem to guide us towards our purpose.
It's about being attuned to that inner compass, that sense of knowing that's always there, even when our minds are cluttered with doubts and distractions.
Exactly. And just like the Israelites learned to trust the cloud's unpredictable movements, we have to learn to trust that inner guidance, even when it leads us down a path we didn't expect.
It's about embracing the unknown, being open to new possibilities, and having faith that even when things feel uncertain, we're being led towards something greater.
I love that. It's about surrendering to the journey, trusting in a power beyond our own understanding, and remembering that sometimes the most unexpected detours lead to the most incredible destinations.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the richness and relevance of Numbers 9. It's a chapter that speaks to the heart of what it means to live a life of faith, not just in ancient times, but on our modern world as well. It's amazing how Numbers 9 manages to be both timeless and timely at the same time. We're talking about events that happened thousands of years ago, yet the lessons about adaptability, trust, and divine guidance feel incredibly relevant to the challenges that we face today.
It's a testament to the enduring power of these ancient stories. They really tap into something fundamental about the human experience, like our search for meaning, our need for connection, our desire to navigate life's uncertainties with a sense of purpose.
And what I find particularly inspiring about Numbers 9 is that it doesn't offer easy answers or simplistic solutions.
Right.
It invites us to engage in a dynamic relationship with the divine, one that requires both faith and action, both surrender and discernment.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's not about blindly following rules or clinging to rigid beliefs. It's about cultivating a posture of openness, a willingness to listen to that inner voice, and a commitment to aligning our actions with our deepest sense of truth.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Numbers 9, what's one key takeaway that you hope will stay with our listeners?
I think the most important message is this. Embrace the journey, even when it feels unpredictable or uncomfortable. Just like the Israelites had to trust the cloud even when they didn't know where it was leading, we have to trust that there's a purpose to our own wanderings, even when we can't see the destination.
That's such a powerful reminder. It's easy to get caught up in the illusion of control, to try to map out our lives with precision. But Numbers 9 teaches us that sometimes the most profound growth happens when we surrender to the unknown, when we allow ourselves to be guided by a force greater than ourselves.
Beautifully said. And for our listeners who are ready to embark on their own journey of discovery, I encourage you to reflect on this question. What are the guiding clouds in your own life? What signs, synchronicities, or intuitive nudges are calling you towards your unique path?
Pay attention to those whispers. Trust your inner compass. And remember that even in the midst of life's wilderness, there's a divine presence guiding you every step of the way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Numbers 9. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.